D Gang. We're going to be going over the homework from group, and this homework ties into our emotion regulation strategies and module. It's called My Feelings and Me, a handout homework on self-control. I was writing this and I figured, whoa, self-control, that's a big word. Sometimes it could be used in a judgment against people. You have no self-control. It could be a very strong word, and I'm very mindful of that. The thing is, though, right, all the baggage aside, self-control is so important when it comes to regulating our emotions. But it just doesn't happen like that. So this homework is going to elucidate how we build self-control through mindfulness and emotion regulation. All right, let's go through it. In today's homework, we're going to highlight the importance of self-control, mindfulness, and emotion regulation. In DBT, we're trying to build our ability to notice our emotions before acting. A problematic way of relating to our emotions, which we're trying to grow out of. If we act without thinking, and if we always act on the emotions, our emotions and our behavior are always going to be congruent, meaning the emotion is going to tell us what to do, and we're just going to snap and do it. I wrote here, I feel, and then I act. This is our emotions and behavior running in parallel. That whatever the emotion is, that's the behavior that follows. Now, what does this mean? It means how you feel equals how you act. And sometimes this is no problem. But sometimes the feelings result in ineffective behavior, and we have to really be mindful of this. So over here, I asked everybody to list an example of how acting on your feelings in the moment is okay. So the one I think of is, hugging my wife after a long day. I missed her. I'm hugging her. I long for her. I give her a big hug, maybe a kiss on the cheek. Right? So my feeling tells me embrace, and right, I come in for a hug and we have a nice moment. On the flip side, let's list an example of when it's not okay. Causes regret, backfires, or puts you in a worse situation than you were before. I had a lot of examples, but just now I just thought, what if my wife has some trouble after she's had a long day and maybe she wants some time to herself? Maybe going to hug her, right? Seeing maybe she's not in the best mood to receive a hug, right? Maybe that's not effective behavior. Even this innocuous example, the simplified version is, you love somebody, you give them a hug, right? But sometimes maybe some people are pushing away. They say, no, I need a little time. Please don't hug me. So we can put here, hugging my wife, and put a feeling here, feeling of longing of love when she isn't receptive to it. Almost maybe forcing a hug. Get off of me, man, she might be feeling. It might create more tension in an argument down the line. Who knows? What's another good example of this? I always think of anger, especially people who are just starting DBT and are in hard situations that trigger anger, right? So, I yell at the person who's annoying me or even pissing me off. Keeping it real here, using the real words. What's another one? Let's see here, right? I'm thinking of my students, right? I feel anxious about a test, right? I'm anxious and I push away studying. I know this happens with me at work. I have some tasks I need to do and get it away from me. But I really have to do them. Sometimes I can lose money. Sometimes I can miss deadlines. if my emotion's telling me push away, but that's not effective, I can't just follow it. I feel, I push away. So here's some really good examples. Let's keep going through our homework. When our emotions are pulling us towards dysregulation and ineffective behavior, it's important that we find our self-control and effectively manage how we feel. So we're starting to get dysregulated. We're starting to feel pulled, urges. You can even add that to the version 2 of this. Urges towards ineffective behavior. It's important that we somehow put a line in the sand, stop our legs from moving, stop our mouth from talking, and give ourselves a minute, because we need to effectively manage how we feel. So I created a little bit of a system here that we're going to use, and this goes very nicely in the Linehan DBT Skills book, and I'm going to connect it together. So we do this important act of self-control by mindfully appreciating our feelings before we act on them. This will give us time to slow ourselves down so we can appreciate and understand our feelings before we act on them. You know what's so funny? This is really getting into the distress tolerance skill of stop. And it shows how intertwined tolerating our distress in the moment is with regulating our emotions at times. In fact, this is both the emotion regulation and distress tolerance handout. So, the system looks something like this. 1, the feeling comes up. 2, we do a mindful act to regain control of our mind. We want to introduce reflectiveness. We want to introduce being aware of how we're feeling before we just, jump on how we act. Right? We want to bring ourselves a moment to stay in control. Sometimes our emotions have control. We want to take a moment take the control back, and then we want to check in with ourselves, and that's step 3. With awareness, we want to check in with how we're feeling. And then 4, we want to proceed mindfully. That's ripped right out of the stop skill. So, take a situation from this week, a fresh one, and apply these steps. 1, you're going to notice the feeling. What feeling did you notice coming up for you, and what was the situation? Was it an external situation? Was it what happened? Ask yourself, what's the facts of the situation? Very, very much of our observe, describe skills right there. And how does your feeling feel in your head and in your body? What's it making you think and feel? How's it making your body feel? And this is where we're tying it into our emotion regulation handouts. All those sheets on, this is what anger makes you feel in the body. This is how it makes you act. This is how it makes you think. Sadness, anxiety, shame, guilt, disgust, etc. So, I'm going to go through an example. And my example is, yesterday I thought about, no, that's not good. That's not the right way to put it. So yesterday I was, watching Breaking Bad, which is true. Me and my wife are going through it. It's the first time viewing it. Excellent show. And, it was getting close to probably like 11:45 p.m. And I had to be up early for today to go pray and to meet my first client eventually at 9. And I have a learning group, a lot of different things I had to be up for. And I'm remembering all this. All my commitments for the next day. And then my wife asks me to wash the dishes from our late night meal. And, I notice, I got upset. I was definitely upset, and I was definitely feeling anger coming out of me, because anger pushes somebody away, tells them to stop something unfair, right? I was thinking that we could do it tomorrow instead of today, because it was so late. I was getting very drowsy, right? I was thinking we could do it tomorrow because I have to be out. I have to be out eventually, the next day. And I wanted to go to sleep. I wanted to just sleep. I was even fine. I would have done it the next morning. If she could have done it, right, that's a negotiation in our relationship, right? But I noticed I was getting upset. I was getting a little frustrated. Anger is probably not the best one. That's like a middle of the road for the emotion. I was definitely flustered. And so, what mindful act did I do? Luckily, I've been brushing up on my mindfulness too. You got to practice what you preach, like I said in the last video. And I took a deep breath. So, took a deep breath before responding. And although I'm a therapist, I'm a human too. If I didn't take that deep breath, I'm more likely to give a zing. I'm more likely to give a thorny comment, maybe, as we all are. Don't let a therapist's credential deceive you. We have to take care of ourselves too. I added some examples here. You could take 3 deep breaths, sit down and breathe for a moment, get a cold or hot drink from the kitchen, take yourself out of the stressful situation if it applies. We can, do a bunch of different things. And even, I'm sure you can come up with some things that help you slow down and be mindful. Mindfulness just means reflecting within, and taking a deep breath enabled me to notice that I was getting testy. Ask myself what's happening right now with my emotions. Write a statement of how your emotions is impacting you. So, helpful suggestions over here. You can take a look at that. I thought to myself, I'm getting a little combative. There we go. And still get the red. You guys know. I'm getting a little combative, and I want to push back against the request. And lastly, proceed mindfully. Now what that means is we're going to control our actions. Now you have a buffet of options. I'm thinking to myself, one response is I can ask to do it tomorrow, which I did, right? I could, take a shower first. I had to shower before bed, and then after I'm done with the shower, maybe go do it. I could ask her to do it just because, to practice our FAST skill, right? F being fair. That's in our interpersonal effectiveness, how we relate to others effectively. I said, hey, I have work tomorrow. I don't think it's really fair that I have to do the dishes right now. And if I could do them tomorrow, I could definitely do that. It wasn't a hard job. It was non-stick pans. I could have done it easily tomorrow. I did a little bit of that too, that option. And look how many choices we have just there. So I did stand up for myself. I didn't approach the uncomfortable task. I didn't walk away from the argument because it wasn't out of control. Self-care to regulate my emotions. Maybe that could be the shower afterwards. A nice hot shower. Well, it was cool. But, showered, got clean. Act opposite to the emotion. I did a little bit of that too, and it's a very handy emotion regulation skill, opposite action. Like I told you guys, I'm being honest. I sometimes feel like I want to, rip somebody's head off. I'm being honest. Anger can sometimes spike. And so I did try to do it in a nicer way and practice my give skill, interpersonal effectiveness, gentle, validating, soft, easy-mannered. And so I asserted the fact that I needed to, go to sleep, and did it in a fair way. My wife wanted the timeline of the task to be done then and there, and it was not a pile up of dishes. We were okay. Nothing, it wasn't crazy that we couldn't recover from not doing the dishes. And I asked not to, using a little bit of also my dear man skills. I described the situation. See how it all flows together? This is why we encourage everybody to go through all the skills. I asked not to do them now or later. And the result was she actually did it herself, and it wasn't that big of a deal. We worked it out. So what could have been a moment of what we call in Yiddish agita, stress, right, turned into, okay, there was some stress to it. I had to stand up for myself. There's always a bit of friction, but my relationship is fine today. So that's how I acted effectively. If I would have gone straight to the anger, could have chewed my wife out, wouldn't have been a good example. She could have woke up maybe the next day not remembering, or maybe not remembering, but not it hitting her. But I used up a bit of brownie points. You can't act frustrated all the time, right? You got to control yourself. And so ultimately, in closing, the goal of this handout is to slow things down, so you have a chance to choose your behavior instead of your emotion doing it for you. And by referencing our emotion regulation handouts from the book, you can identify your emotions better and utilize the emotion regulation skills within. And that's within the Marshall Linehan DBT Skills handout book, the skills workbook, and it's in emotion regulation module. It's a big old list of emotions and what they do, how they make you feel, kind of like what I was referencing before. You should speak with your DBT therapist, or just, if you have the book and you're doing it yourself, you can just open up to it and go to emotion regulation, the beginning handouts, not the advanced worksheets at the end, and you'll find it closer to the beginning, past the list of what makes it hard for us to regulate our emotions. And I made this other graph, and I explain it here. Sometimes we need to act differently from our emotions in order to have the best outcomes in our life. So, my feeling was getting angry and my behavior was different. I think this example, my behavior wasn't exactly out of congruence with my feeling, but it definitely was not. It definitely was more tempered. And so the idea of it is that it wasn't exact, because I could have maybe blown up if I would have followed the feeling exactly, but it was skillfully diverted with the skills. And so it's kind of about acting against the emotion, soothing the emotion, regulating the emotion, understanding the emotion. By staying in control, you will build mastery in regulating and controlling your emotions and behaviors. And then a little bit over here, for anyone in my skills group, all homeworks are going to be reviewed on videos like this on the Insight DBT page weekly, in case you need some inspiration to finish up the homework. That's it for today. If you have any questions and you're with me, please ask in group or in our individual sessions. And if you're doing this on your own, you can leave a question in the comment below, or consult if you're in DBT with somebody else or some other agency. You can ask them for a little guidance on anything today. This has been Mike from Insight DBT, and I'm wishing you